I'm your girl, Melissa Hassong, and I am bringing you an episode on a topic that is going to save you a ton of time. I believe it has massive productivity implications. It's going to save you time in your business, not only that, but in your life. And I'm going to jump in because this hack has been really game changing for me. And you may have heard of it before. It's called batching. And batching is something that me and Jesse have been doing on the podcast for probably about 6 months now since the rebrand. And it has been really transformative. I also do it in my business and have been for several years. And batching really saves time. It is basically a lever that you can pull to increase the efficiency in your business and in your life. And the way that I like to define batching is it's basically doing a lot of the same or similar tasks at one time in a short time frame. So instead of doing all of these tasks at various random times throughout the week, or throughout your day even, you're going to save these tasks and do them all at once, kind of like in a sprint. It's going to be great. And I'm going to give you some examples of how we do it in the podcast, but also how I've started to do this in my personal life that saved a bunch of time that I can then go and spend with family. So a couple of ways that we batch in the podcast is Jesse and I have started batching episodes. And that means, Jesse lives in the US, I live in Australia now, and scheduling time to get us in the same Zoom room is quite challenging. We both have young kids and it is just a lot of back and forth and it doesn't happen very often. So what happens when we do get this time together is we use it really efficiently and strategically. So instead of doing maybe recording one episode a week like we used to when we started the podcast, it kind of got to a point where it was like, okay, we don't have as much time. We have kids now. So how do we use this time the best and basically squeeze as much juice out of that time together as we can? So we've come up with batch recording episodes. And how that looks is we'll get together for about 2 hours and we'll sit down and we will record back to back to back 2 to 3 episodes in one sitting. And this does require a little bit of prep time ahead of the actual recording sessions, but it means that when we are together, we can just cut through all of the busy work, all of the prep time, and we get down to the meat of the content creation, which is recording the podcast for you and then at a later date publishing it. And again, in the post-production, we've started to batch as well. So instead of editing one episode a week, we'll send to our editor and say, hey, we just recorded 3 episodes. Can you batch edit them all right now? And then me and Jesse can then batch upload them and batch schedule them. So I think you're starting to see how this simplifies your workflow. And it actually means that you can start to see patterns in things. So when we record a podcast, there is a structure to it. And it's very, for us, when we make the content, it's very replicable. And then you can start to see patterns and then not only patterns form, but efficiencies. So as we are recording, things just get easier. The more you do them, you start to streamline and it's fantastic. So maybe you're listening to this and you don't have a podcast, but something almost everyone has, right, is an email account. And if you run a business or if you have a side hustle, you probably have a specific business email account that you get orders through. Maybe you communicate with clients via this email, or even you're just reaching out to people for maybe funding opportunities or ways to collaborate. And I was talking to a friend recently, and she's a mother like I am. Our children are around the same age. And she was saying that she had sent a bunch of emails out at one time and that she was getting responses kind of trickling back. And I was like, that's amazing. Congratulations. And she expressed to me that she felt like she wanted to be replying to these emails straight away, even though, she has a young child and has life things happening. So she can't be on her email all the time. And I would, suggest to everyone listening that that's like not a bad thing, because the fact that you get emails coming in throughout the day, throughout the week, something like that, you can actually go into your emails and say, okay, at 11 a.m. in the morning, I'm going to go and clear all my emails. Okay. And then at 3 p.m. in the afternoon, I'm going to go and clear out all my emails. And instead of sitting there hitting refresh and sending those emails back as soon as they arrive, you can go in and start to crush through those emails. You'll see patterns. You'll be able to respond maybe like with the same email. You might just be able to copy and paste and just crush out all of those tasks in one sitting. I want to give you another very relatable example here of how I batch in my personal life. And if you're listening to this and you have a very busy life, running a business, having a family, then maybe you are just really not available for doing like housekeeping type tasks. And that's really where I am in my life right now. Laundry is an ongoing thing. It's always going to be there. And so is cleaning the house. And if I'm honest, my son Val, he's 1 year old. And yeah, I could spend all day, every day doing laundry. I'm not even kidding. I could spend all day, every day cleaning the house, and it would still be there, and it would still be like an ongoing demand for me. But what I've started to do is I actually batch my laundry. So twice a week, I'll just go in and do all the laundry at once. And then I will, process it, fold it, whatever. And then instead of doing it every single day for, 20 minutes, 30 minutes a day, I'm able to do it in one chunk. Maybe it takes like 2 hours, a couple days a week. I do it in one chunk, get it all done. And then I hit refresh. And yeah, those are the times that I do my laundry. And I want to make a point here to say that when you start to go into this batching, productivity sort of workflow hack, it might feel a little uncomfortable at first, especially if you're used to constantly doing things, if you're used to constantly going from one thing to the next and never resting and never really putting a ton of time going deep on one task. It's going to be really uncomfortable because you're going to have this urge to like always do stuff. But I want to just encourage you to resist that urge, okay? Because it's going to save you so much time in the long run by batching things together. It truly is, I think, one of the most efficient ways that you can use your time in business and in life. And I do get this question a lot from clients, and they will ask me like, Mel, how are you managing your time? How are you doing family? How are you doing business? How are you helping to run a top 10% global podcast and doing all the business stuff, riding your motorcycle and still having fulfillment outside of work? And the way that I do this is through batching. And I want to give you an example of how I do this, because not every single day I am doing like 12 hours in my business. So I'm going to break this down and let you know day by day how I'm batching and specifically what I'm batching in my business. So on Mondays, I have my son all day. So I don't have a ton of time to go deep on a specific needle mover task activity in my business. But what I do have is a couple spans of maybe 1 to 2 hours, if I'm lucky, where my son naps. So instead of, like I said before, spending that time doing laundry, spending that time house cleaning, I'll actually say, okay, so while he's napping for the next 90 minutes, I'm going to go and crush out all my emails from the weekend. Because emails is something that I know I can clear in probably 20 minutes, and I don't have to go super deep. It doesn't take a ton of time. So I will choose to batch my emails in a smaller chunk of time because that's all I have because my son is napping. So that's an example of how I do that. On Tuesday, I have my son in childcare for the morning, and Tuesday is where I do all the podcast email batch activities. So this is where if I need to quickly, or not even quickly, if I need to schedule and edit a solo podcast episode, that's really quick for me to do. So that's where I'll start to batch the podcast editing, and then I'll batch the scheduling after that. And that takes maybe like 90 minutes to 2 hours if I'm doing it really efficiently. So that's what I do in my Tuesday mornings. The next thing, Wednesday, again, I have my son all day. So Wednesdays is where, again, I'm using those gaps, his nap gaps, I guess you could say. So like 90 minutes to 2 hours where I have some time to batch activities that aren't going to be like a lot of time. So this is where I'll do my social media planning. So maybe I'll edit and repurpose some videos from the podcast. Maybe I will, I don't even know, schedule those videos from the podcast, because that's another thing that we do here at Full Time Freedom. And then on Thursdays, that's where my son he's at my mum's all day. Bless her soul, is so helpful. She has my son all day from about 9 to 4 p.m. And that is where I batch all my clients. So I batch all my one-on-one business coaching and business mentorship clients Thursday mornings, back to back to back. This has so many benefits when I batch my clients back to back, because when I have my client calls, I need to be in the zone. I need to be high energy AF. And I just need to be like tapped in and tuned on to that coaching energy. I also do my makeup. I also get a little dressed up. So there is some prep that goes into getting into that coaching energy, that coaching space. And I prefer to do that one day a week instead of spreading it out 5 days a week and having, clients random times, random days. I like to put them all one day back to back. And then that just has so many efficiencies, like it's bananas. And then on Fridays is where Friday mornings, again, my son is in childcare until midday. So that's where I'll do my podcast recordings. So I will record interviews or solo podcast episodes. And then this is also where I record episode guest spots for my radio show. And again, going back to back with interviews like this, again, I'm in the zone. I'm turned on, I'm with it. And that is how I have started to build not only a kind of content that is like a body of work, but how I've been able to do it sustainably, but also integrate it with my life, because my business is not my life. It used to be, but my business is not my life anymore. And it was a process to get there. But my business is really a part of my life. And I want it to be working cohesively with everything else in my life, whether it's family, social time, self-care, or anything else that gives me fulfillment, quite frankly. So that's how I spread out my work time in order to keep my online coaching business going, also maintaining Jessie and I's podcast as a top 10% global podcast, and how I have managed to fit all of the activities into my week in a really sustainable way that lights me up. Not only that, but it gives structure to my days. So I know next week on Tuesday, like I'm going to be doing podcast admin. I don't know specifically what I'm going to be doing, but I know that whatever it is, I'm going to be batching it. And that helps me it just like takes the mental energy out of figuring out like what's my week going to look like. And it gives flow to my days also, because I know like this time on this day is work and the rest is family. The rest I spend with Val, going to the park, doing play dates with our friends, that sort of thing. And this batching technique is something that I bring to a lot of my business coaching clients, and something that they have really been able to implement tactically in a strategic way, where they can make the most of their time that they have in their business in a way that feels good and also doesn't sacrifice family time. It doesn't sacrifice self-care. Like they're not burning out all the time. And something that actually the reason why this came up is I've just helped a client batch with her clients on Friday morning. And that's really opened up her schedule in ways that she can spend doing other activities that is really going to move the needle for her. And I wanted to let you know and invite you that if you're like, oh my gosh, Mel, batching sounds incredible. How can I start to integrate this into my life? Then I want to invite you I do free 30-minute calls for potential anyone that wants to work with me, where we can go deeper on, what are the kind of needle moving things? How can we apply strategy in your business to kind of unlock your time and your potential so you can get more cash flow, more clarity and confidence in your business? And if that sounds like something that's interesting to you, then I want to let you know, if you head to herhandlebars.com/, free call, then you can apply for a 30-minute free call with me where we can go deep on these sorts of activities that are really going to shift the needle for you so that you can earn more, work less, and spend more quality time with your family. And I really hope that this episode has helped you see ways that you can implement batching into your business and into your life to free up your time so that you can spend it doing other things in life that give you fulfillment. And thank you so much for joining us. We'll catch you on the next episode of Full Time Freedom.